Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Sam Gabriel here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Was a Late Bloomer. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat, so we begin. It was a sunny day in Japan, and everything looked quite peaceful until a villain attacked a train track. Civilians were told to stand back and let the pros deal with the situation. Among the crowds was a green-haired boy, and he looked enthusiastic about the hero's actions. One of the heroes, that was named Kamui Woods, was attempting to capture the villain with his quirk. However, a giant woman had kicked the villain and took credit for the capture. Every paparazzi took pictures of the new hero, named Mount Lady, and praised her for her actions, while Kamui Woods felt irritated for being upstaged by an amateur. Oh wow, that's so cool! She became a giant to stop the villain. I should add her to my notes, the green-haired boy said enthusiastically as he took notes. A random bystander noticed the boy's enthusiasm and expertise on quirks and asked the boy if he planned on becoming a hero, to which the freckled boy nodded. On his way to school, the boy began to feel a bit lightheaded. Was it due to the excitement he had earlier? He shrugged it off and continued on his way to school. A couple hours later, his teacher had come in and told the students about their career plans, but threw the papers up since he knew they all desired to be in the hero course. All the students cheered and ended up using their quirks in the classroom, which was against the rules. Everyone cheered except the green-haired boy and a blonde-haired boy who was leaning on his chair with his feet up on the desk. Hey, Teach! Don't lump me in with those extras. They'll be lucky to even get into UA. I aced the mock test, so I'll be the only one in this crappy school to attend such a school, the blonde boy said in a cocky tone. The teacher then pointed out that Midoriya was also planning to attend, which caused everyone in class to stare at the boy in disbelief and then laughed at him. One student mentioned that Midoriya did not have a quirk, and another mentioned that UA wouldn't allow a student to attend the school without one. They changed that rule a while ago, so I'd still have a chance to... The green-haired boy was cut off by the blonde-haired boy, who had just exploded his desk in 2 pieces. The green-haired boy crawled into the back of the class as he tried not to confront the explosive blonde boy. You think that a quirkless nerd like you would be accepted into a school like UA? In your dreams, you damned nerd, the blonde boy growled. Wait, Kachan, you don't understand. The green-haired boy pleaded. What's there to understand? You're quirkless. You won't stand a chance against me, the explosive boy taunted further. The green-haired boy stayed silent as he began to feel lightheaded again. He wiped the sweat from his forehead as he got up from the floor. The class had begun to notice that the green-haired boy was staggering as he walked towards his torn desk. The teacher asked Midoriya if he was feeling all right and if he needed to go to the nurse's office. No, I'm fine. He took a couple of steps before he passed out. Everyone gathered around the unconscious green-haired boy looking to see if he was okay, until a loud voice said, Step back, you damn extras! Give him some air! That voice turned out to be Bakugo. Everyone had stepped back as he instructed. The teacher told the atomic blonde to take the boy to the infirmary, to which the blonde boy scoffed at the idea, but he had no choice. He picked up the unconscious green-haired boy over his shoulder and walked to the nurse's office. At the infirmary, the nurse thanked the atomic blonde for bringing him to her office and told him to return to class. Oi, Deku! If you die, I'll kill you, you hear me? The blonde said in an assertive but worried tone. A couple hours later, the green-haired boy had woken up from passing out and had noticed he wasn't in his classroom. Where am I? Why am I here? The freckled boy said in a confused voice. The nurse calmed him down and told him what had happened. The green-haired boy felt a bit relieved for being informed, but also wondered why he passed out all of a sudden. The nurse gave a couple of theories. One, he may have been dehydrated and didn't drink enough water, or he developed a quirk. What did you just say? The green-haired boy's attention peaked after the mention of developing a quirk. The nurse explained to the boy that he may have a rare case called a late bloomer, but she wasn't sure if that was the case. All she could do was give the boy some juice and advised him to see a doctor just in case her second theory was true. She then sent him back to his classroom. When Midoriya entered the classroom, he noticed that almost everyone had left for the day. The only people that stayed behind were Bakugo and his lackeys. As the green-haired boy packed his things to go home, a hand snatched his notebook that had information about heroes. The green-haired boy looked up and saw that it was Katsuki. I wasn't done with what I said earlier, Deku, the atomic blonde growled. What's that, Katsuki? His diary? Said one of the bullies, while the other commented, Hero notes, that's so lame. Gotcha, just give it back, the green-haired boy pleaded. The atomic blonde used his quirk to burn the notebook and threw it out the window. He then placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and told him in a menacing voice, don't apply to you, or I'll kill you. That's so mean, the green-haired boy muttered in a low voice. Bakugo and his little gang were about to leave the classroom until the atomic blonde gave one last comment. If you want a quirk so bad, there's an easy way to get one. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray that you get one in your next life. The green-haired boy was so disgusted by this comment that he clenched his fists, and they began to give off a faint glow to them. He then sighed and just went to fetch his notebook that was thrown in the fish pond right next to the school. Meanwhile, a man shouted that someone had stolen his money. The culprit was shown to be a sludge villain. In the corner of an alley, a mystery had grown from a skeletal man to a tall, buff man. "Fear not, everyone, for I am here," the buff man said with a wide smile on his face. We cut back to Izuku as he started walking under a bridge. He remembered the time his doctor had told him that he wasn't able to develop a quirk, but then wondered, if he wasn't able to develop one then, how come the nurse theorized that he may be a late bloomer? He muttered the possibilities of what was happening to him, until something popped out of the sewer. It was the sludge villain from earlier, and he looked at the green-haired boy with ill intentions.
"You'll make the perfect body for my cover,"
the villain said as he charged at the boy as he attempted to take his body. Izuku began to panic and immediately attempted to run towards the other side, but was stopped by the sludge villain who had captured his right leg. The green-haired boy didn't know what to do as fear overtook his thinking process.
"This'll all be over soon. Just sit back and watch me take over your body,"
the slime villain said in a suggestive tone. As the boy was being filled with sludge, he began to wonder, is this the end for me? Being killed by a villain and not knowing whether or not I developed a quirk? As the boy felt his life slipping away, a voice in the distance shouted, "Have no fear, for I am here!" The man reeled back his fist and shouted, "Texas Smash!" After that attack, the green-haired boy had fallen unconscious. He felt a hand smacking him in the face, and when he opened his eyes, he saw that it was his hero, All Might. All Might? How? When? Wait, where's the villain? The green-haired boy wondered nervously. Oh, him? I had managed to capture him and put him in these bottles. The number one hero showed the villain in 2 separate bottles. The green-haired boy bowed multiple times in gratitude. Wait, All Might, there's something I want to ask you. Sorry, young man, but I'm in a hurry. I need to take this villain to the police station. Please be safe and stay in school. He jumped to the sky, and as he was up in the air, he felt something weighing him down. He saw that it was the green-haired boy. Much like in canon, All Might told him to let go, but Izuku told him that if he did, he would die. They landed on a roof, and the green-haired boy felt wind-whipped. The number one hero scolded the boy for being reckless, and once again bid him farewell, until the boy stopped him and asked him the most important question. All my life, I've been told that I'm not good enough, and that I can't be a hero. There were times when I believed them, but I knew that they were wrong. So please tell me, All Might, do you think I have what it takes to be a hero? The boy looked and saw a skeletal man in front of him. He freaked out and wondered where All Might went. The skeletal man revealed that he was All Might, and began to explain about an injury that he received 5 years ago. He then answered the boy's earlier question. I don't know what to tell you, young man. If you have a quirk, you'd be able to be a great hero. Without one, I don't think it'd be wise to tempt fate. You'd be better off as a police officer. The skeletal man replied in a cold voice. Those words pierced Midoriya like a sword to the chest. As All Might went down the stairs, he had noticed that the bottles he carried were with him, and as he was looking around, he heard an explosion in the distance. In an alley far from where they are, the sludge villain held Bakugo hostage. All the pros couldn't approach the villain due to their attacks not having any effect on the creature. In the corner of the street, a deflated All Might appeared, and he felt helpless since he had used his buff form for the day. Meanwhile, as Izuku was walking down the street with his head down after his talk with All Might, he wondered if he should even become a hero in the first place. He then saw a crowd of people in an alley, and he went to investigate the commotion. When he saw that the sludge villain from earlier was there, he immediately felt guilty for letting it escape. Before he could succumb to his sadness, he noticed that the villain had a hostage, and that hostage was none other than Kacchan. At that moment, something lit up inside the green-haired boy that caused him to run in to save his former childhood friend. As he ran towards the villain, he felt something on his hands, like they were burning up. The pro-heroes tried to tell the boy to turn back and that it was dangerous, but the boy just ignored their calls. He looked at his hands for a brief second, and saw that there was a small orb on his right hand. Did I just develop a quirk? The boy wondered for a bit, before he was interrupted by the sludge villain.
Looks like someone didn't learn from last time,
the villain said as he tried to attack the green-haired boy. Izuku, think. What would Kacchan do in this situation? the boy thought in his head. I got it! He exclaimed. He put his new quirk to the test as he manipulated the heat around him and made balls of light. He was impressed by what he could do for a minute, and then threw it at the villain's face, hoping it would blind him. It worked as the villain screamed in pain, which then allowed an air pocket to open, which then allowed Katsuki to breathe a bit. Deku, what are you doing here? The blonde boy asked in annoyance. I'm doing what a hero would do. Save your life even if you didn't ask for it, Deku responded bluntly. All Might heard those words and buffed up again.
I've had enough of these games, kid. Die!
The villain shouted. The sludge was preparing for an attack, and Izuku covered his face as he prepared for it, but it never came. When he uncovered his face, he saw a buffed-up All Might protecting him from the attack. He grabbed both the green-haired boy and the captured blonde as he shouted, Detroit Smash! The punch created a gust of wind, which then created rain. Everyone was so impressed by the number one hero's actions that they cheered for him. All Might raised his right fist in the air. After the villain had been detained by police, the heroes had scolded the green-haired boy for being reckless, while Katsuki was being praised for his quirk and bravery. The blonde-haired boy wasn't happy. However, he was furious at the green-haired boy. A couple hours later, as Izuku was walking home, he heard a familiar, angry voice call out to him. Deku! The voice turned out to be Bakugo as he was running towards his childhood friend. He then added, I don't know what you think happened back there, but I didn't need your help, you damn nerd! As the blonde walked away in a huff, the green-haired boy muttered in a snarky voice, Welcome. He then continued on his way before bumping into All Might again. The green-haired boy jumped in fear until he asked, Wait, how did you escape the press? Oh, young Midoriya, when you've been a pro-hero for as long as I have, you develop ways to... The number one hero cut himself off as he deflated and spat out blood again. Young man, back there was an incredible display of heroism. When no one in that crowd was able to save that boy, you jumped right in, even if you had no right to. Young man, you too can become a hero. After hearing those words, the green-haired boy cried tears of joy. The fact that his idol believed in him after what he did gave him life. By the way, didn't you say you were quirkless earlier? All Might asked, confused. Izuku then responded while wiping the tears from his eyes. I was. Turns out I'm a late bloomer. Go figure. All Might chuckled at the boy's response and then asked, Well then, how would you like to be my successor? The green-haired boy was caught off guard by the question. What? Thank you. Given the offer, Izuku was left speechless. Toshinori then explained the details about his quirk. My quirk is called One for All. It's a power that's been passed on by many. Its origin is unknown. So what do you say? Will you be my successor? The skeletal man asked. It took a couple of minutes for the green-haired boy to process this information, but he finally managed to think clearly of an answer. Thank you, All Might. This is such an honor. But no thank you. All Might was caught off guard by this response, and didn't understand why the green-haired boy would refuse such an offer. The green-haired boy explained his reason. All Might, I've admired you for such a long time, and I wanted to be like you, but after this recent development, I don't think your quirk is meant for me. I want to become my own hero, my own symbol of peace. The skeletal man looked at the green-haired boy in confusion, but understood the boy's reasoning. All right. I wish you luck on developing your newfound quirk, Toshinori said, prepared to leave. He was then stopped by Midoriya, and was asked if he could still train him for the entrance exam. All Might looked confused as he didn't expect this kind of request. He buffed up and said, Why, of course, young man, I'd be happy to. Izuku began to jump for joy as he felt excited to be trained by his idol. They agreed to meet at a specific place at a specific time, but first Midoriya needed to see a doctor to explain what his new quirk is. When he entered his apartment, his mother had just finished making dinner. Inko noticed that her son was smiling and asked, You seem to be in a good mood. Did something happen? The green-haired boy gave a smug smile and responded, I don't know, you tell me. He manipulated the fire from the stove and made a small blue fireball. The boy's mother dropped her plate of food to the floor in shock, and immediately started crying tears of joy. Oh, I thought the doctor said you weren't able to develop a quirk, Inko said while she wiped her tears. I think I'm a late bloomer, but we'll have to talk to a professional about this. Do you think we can go tomorrow? The boy asked his mother. She responded and immediately dialed her phone. As she was waiting for a response, the machine had told her that the offices are closed for the night. Inko rubbed the back of her head, chuckling at the realization that it's late. I guess I got a little too excited, she said while blushing red in embarrassment. The next day, they both went to the doctor and were waiting for the results. Both of them were at the edge of their seats, desperate for answers. When the doctor had finally come in with the results, he said, Based on the results, I can confirm, ma'am, that your son indeed developed a quirk. Congratulations, son. Both Inko and Izuku were happy for the news until Inko asked, What's my son's quirk, doctor? The doctor responded with confidence, Well, since you said your quirk is to attract small objects and your husband's quirk is fire breath, it's safe to assume that your son can manipulate fire. I believe the technical term is pyrokinesis, if I'm not mistaken. Inko asked a follow-up question. He can? How is that possible? The doctor then elaborated further on the boy's quirk. Here's the interesting part. He can attract the heat sources towards him and form it into anything he can imagine. The boy remembered how during the sludge villain attack, he was able to manipulate the fire and turn it into a ball of light in order to shoot it at the sludge villain. That explains why I was able to make a ball of light, the green-haired boy said in realization. There are a couple of drawbacks you must be aware of, young man. Your quirk may cause some dehydration, so make sure you drink plenty of water. And you might also experience some burns while using it. Please be wary of that as well. The two of them made sure to keep note of this information and left the hospital room. When they went home, Izuku immediately called All Might and explained everything to him. Then All Might said, Where are you, young Midoriya? I thought we agreed to meet at Dagobah Beach? The green-haired boy's face had turned white at the realization of the time. He immediately rushed out the door. His mother was confused as to where her son was heading, but simply told him to come back in time for dinner. At Dagobah Beach, All Might was standing in front of a truck and scolded the green-haired boy for being late. He then explained what the training regimen would be about as he handed the boy the Aim to Pass American Dream plan. Izuku read over the entire plan and understood it. He then requested for some minor adjustments to the plan since he now has a quirk. I think you should include a quirk training regimen in order for me to properly handle it, the boy suggested. A couple days later, the boy had started to lift heavy garbage from the beach and place it on the truck. He then started using his quirk to shoot at old tin cans as target practice. The boy later started eating larger portions of food in order to build more muscles. He went through all that even on rainy days and cold nights. On February 26th, at 6 a.m., the boy was standing on top of the piled-up garbage he had cleaned up as he screamed at the top of his lungs. A deflated Toshinori looked at the beach in awe as he saw no sign of trash anywhere. He was impressed at how much this boy had managed to do. As the green-haired boy was about to collapse, Toshinori buffed up and saved the green-haired boy. Midoriya looked at the number one hero and asked in a weak voice, Did I do good? The number one hero gave a hearty laugh as he responded, Ha ha ha! You were exceptional, young man. Much better than I had anticipated. You went from 0 to hero just like that. He snapped his finger. The green-haired boy was crying tears of joy after hearing the praises All Might gave him. The number one hero commented in his head, That boy is such a crybaby. Bless his heart. He then told the boy that he had about 2 hours before the entrance exam. After hearing this, the boy immediately left to get ready. At the UA campus, Izuku Midoriya marveled at the sight of his dream school, and began to wonder if he was dreaming or not. His thoughts were cut short, as a familiar angry voice called out to him, Out of the way, you damn nerd! Izuku immediately knew who it was, and just responded passive-aggressively. Morning, Kat-chan. You look grumpier than usual. Did you forget to drink coffee, or is the caffeine the reason you're grumpy? The atomic blonde just got irritated and continued walking, which surprised the green-haired boy since he expected his childhood friend/bully to snap back. Huh. He seems less angry than usual. I guess that sludge villain did a number on him, the freckled boy thought to himself. He then took his first step towards his goal, and immediately tripped on something and felt like he was going to die. He prepared to hit the ground, but for some reason it didn't happen. He noticed that he was floating. A girl with a round face and brown hair said, Are you okay? Sorry, I noticed you were about to fall and had to use my quirk on you without permission. Anyway, I hope I'll see you inside taking the entrance exam. Izuku blushed after talking to a girl. He then went in and he saw President Mike giving the instructions on the exam. Same explanation as in canon and same rules. A blue-haired boy with glasses pointed out that the teachers must have made a mistake, since there are 4 robots and only 3 appeared on the papers. President Mike gave the same explanation as in canon. The blue-haired boy then proceeded to scold Izuku. You have been muttering throughout the entire lesson and distracting all of us from reaching our goal." Izuku felt embarrassed, but understood where the blue-haired boy was coming from. He apologized for causing a scene and then told Present Mike to continue with the instructions. After explaining everything, Present Mike told everyone to get changed and to meet them at the exam gates. At the exam gates, the green-haired boy noticed the girl from earlier and tried to thank her for saving him, but was stopped by the blue-haired boy. He was scolded, "Please do not try to break her concentration. She's worked so hard to get here and you're trying to take away her effort." Midoriya saw everyone run head first while he was left behind. He immediately ran into the mock city and prepared to beat some robots. In a monitor room, a couple of teachers are seen watching the students charging the robots. Some were even beginning to pick favorites among the students. In the corner, the number one hero was focused on a specific green-haired boy and hoped that his training would pay off. Izuku began to search for some robots and at first couldn't find any until he saw one come out of a corner. The green-haired boy prepared a fireball and threw it at the machine. He managed to blow off the head. He then continued to find some more robots in order to gain more points. He got to blow up 2 more one-pointer robots. After a while, the green-haired boy started to feel dehydrated from using his pyrokinesis. He wanted to sit down for a bit, but something big was approaching the scene. It was a zero-pointer robot, and it looked dangerous. Deku was horrified at the size of the machine. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. His first instinct was to run away from it like everyone else, since there was no point in destroying it. But as soon as he attempted to run away, he heard a female voice scream, "Help me! Somebody!" The green-haired boy looked back and saw that it was the girl from earlier. As soon as he saw her stuck on some rubble, a spark ignited within him. That spark created a blaze in his hands as he ran towards the zero-pointer, rocketed himself towards the robot's metal face, and created a powerful fire blast that was strong enough to reduce the head to ashes. After using such a powerful blast, everyone around him was in awe of his actions. A certain blue-haired boy was even more impressed by the green-haired boy and thought to himself, "Did I misjudge that boy?" After using such a powerful attack, Izuku fell unconscious while falling to the ground. He lost the strength to stop himself from falling headfirst into the ground, until he felt a slap across the face. That slap was the brown-haired girl, as she used her quirk to save him again, and she also used it to carry herself while laying on a broken piece of the robots. "Release," she said as she placed the tip of her fingers together in order to land safely. After that, she was puking rainbows. A distant voice announced, "Time is up!" That voice turned out to be Present Mike. The exam was over, and everyone was being checked on by the school nurse, Recovery Girl. When she went to see both Uraraka and a passed out and dehydrated Izuku, she gave the girl some ginger ale to help her upset stomach, and she asked for a stretcher to send the green-haired boy to her clinic. Uraraka asked in a worried voice, "Will he be okay?" The nurse assured her that he would be fine and that she should just go home and let her take care of this. The brown-haired girl nodded and left with the rest of the students. Meanwhile, in the nurse's clinic, Midoriya woke up from his exhaustion and saw that he was hooked up to IV saline fluids. He looked around to see if anyone else was there with him and saw that Toshinori was sitting next to him. As he saw the boy awakened, he buffed up and said, "You're finally awake! Thank God! How are you feeling, young man?" The green-haired boy was confused as to why he was here, but remembered that he used a big fire blast to destroy the zero-pointer robot. He wondered where the brown-haired girl was, but Recovery Girl stopped him from moving around and told him that he needs to take it easy. She advised him that he should be more careful when using his quirk. As he was discharged from the office, he asked All Might, "How did I do? Did I pass?" Unfortunately, he did not receive a proper answer from the number one hero, as he could not speak about it. It was against the rules. He only told him, "You'll have to wait 2 weeks." The green-haired boy nodded in agreement. He grabbed his things and went home. He stared at his hands, wondering, "I need to improve my quirk, but how?" As he wondered about that, he felt something close by, like someone was watching him. He asked, "Is anyone there?" The person watching him was none other than Katsuki Bakugo. He growled and said, "I warned you not to apply, Deku!" The green-haired boy just rolled his eyes and kept walking, because he had no time to deal with his childhood friend's drama. This made Katsuki irritated because he normally expected Deku to cower and stutter, but instead he got a different response. He muttered to himself, "I won't play second fiddle to a useless nerd like you, Deku." 2 weeks went by, and Dinko had just finished cleaning the living room. As she was about to put away the vacuum cleaner, she heard a knock on the door and went to answer it. Meanwhile, Izuku was taking notes about his quirk and thinking of a cool costume design, and also registering some support items for his quirks as he can't make fire. His mother shouted his name and showed him an envelope with a UA wax seal on it. The green-haired boy jumped from his seat and immediately grabbed the letter and opened it. He saw that it had an odd disc on it, and when he turned it on, it created a hologram projection. On the projection was All Might as he announced, Congratulations, young Midoriya. You passed the entrance exam. You managed to gain 48 villain points from defeating a couple of one-pointers. However, there was more to the test than just destroying some villains. You managed to rescue someone in danger without a second thought. That, young man, is what a hero does. Welcome to your Hero Academia. The green-haired boy was crying his eyes out after hearing the news. He then told his mother the great news, and they had a celebratory dinner. A couple weeks later, Izuku Midoriya was wearing a new school uniform and prepared to start his first day at UA. Before he could go out the door, his mother stopped him and asked him if he had everything he needed. The green-haired boy then told her that he didn't forget anything. Inko then twiddled her fingers before giving her son an apology. She apologized for doubting him when he was 4 years old. She then declared that she will fully support her son. The green-haired boy was so touched by that statement that he went and gave his mother a big hug. He then kissed her on the cheek and told her that he loved her. She told him to have a great first day, and he responded, "Bye, Mom. Wish me luck. I'll be back." He walked out the door and took his first step towards his future. As he walked up to the door that had 1A on it, he took a deep breath and hoped that his classmates weren't people he knew. As soon as he opened the door, he jinxed it. "Please remove your feet from the desk at once. You're vandalizing school property. Did you get a stick shoved up your ass, or were you born with it?" Deku facepalmed at the sight of seeing his childhood bully arguing with the blue-haired boy over a desk. The green-haired boy thought to himself in a snarky tone, "It's only his first day and he's already looking for trouble. That must be a new record." The atomic blonde noticed the green-haired boy at the door and scoffed as he said, "What the hell are you doing here, nerd?" Izuku then responded with, "Not looking for trouble, that's for sure. Unlike some people." Bakugo got irritated at the sassy comment and was about to charge towards the green-haired boy, but the blue-haired boy interfered as he introduced himself. "Hello, my name is Tenya Ida. It's an honor to be in the same class with you. I must apologize for my negative perception of you. I originally thought you were some guy who was trying to ruin everyone's chances of getting in." He was stopped mid-sentence as the green-haired boy commented, "I would never do that. Him, on the other hand, totally would." He pointed at Katsuki. "Say that again, you damn nerd, and I'll kill you!" Katsuki roared in anger. "Regardless, I saw that you risked your life to save that girl, and therefore you must have known about the hidden hero points. For that, I praise your efforts." Ida bowed in respect. "Thank you very much. You're very sweet," the green-haired boy said as he rubbed the back of his head. "Hey, I know that messy hair. You're that boy that saved me at the entrance exam. I'm so glad you're feeling better," the brown-haired girl said with enthusiasm. Midoriya was blushing red at how close she was to him. She then proceeded to wonder who the homeroom teacher was. Then a tired voice outside the hall said, "If you're here to make friends, then you might as well pack up and leave." The man appeared to have shaggy black hair, tired eyes, a gray scarf, dressed in black, and had a scar on his right cheek. He introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Shoto Aizawa, your homeroom teacher, and I'll be training you all to be heroes. Please put on your gym uniforms that are located under your desks and meet me outside in the field." Everyone was confused about his sudden request, and then the tired teacher explained further, "Look, UA is very loose when it comes to teaching. This is my way of running this class, and if you don't like it, then leave." Most of the students didn't like the teacher's attitude, while others respected his methods. They all changed to their gym uniforms and went to the field. The tired teacher explained how the quirk apprehension test worked, and what they will do in order to see if they got potential. He then mentioned that they will be allowed to use their quirks. Everyone got excited after hearing that. The activities were split into 5. 50-meter dash, the grip strength test, the standing long jump, the sustained sideways jump, and the final test, the pitch. He called up Bakugo to throw the ball. "Anything is fine as long as you stay within the circle." The atomic blonde grabbed the ball and reeled it back before shouting, "Die!" Aizawa looked at his phone and was impressed by the score. He then showed the class what they should try to achieve. A girl with pink skin thought that this was going to be fun. Mr. Aizawa heard this and responded, "New rule. Anyone who scores low will get expelled." Everyone was shocked at the teacher's threat of expulsion. The brown-haired girl even said angrily, "That's not fair." The teacher then retorted, "Are earthquakes fair? Are villain attacks fair? The real world isn't fair. You'll face a lot of challenges, and I'm here to prepare you for those challenges." Everyone understood and proceeded with the activities. Everything went the same as in canon, except in the 50-meter dash, Izuku tried to copy Katsuki's flying technique. It worked. When it came to the ball throw, Midoriya was up next. He prepared himself to throw the ball. He concentrated the heat from the sun and transferred it to the ball, and he chucked it really far into the air. Aizawa showed the boys results, and it was promising. Everyone was impressed by the boy's quirk except Bakugo. He got mad that the guy who was nothing more than a pebble to him was almost on his level. After the activities, the teacher showed the results on the big screen, and Midoriya was placed in 4th. "By the way, I lied about sending anyone home." After hearing that bit of news, everyone got upset except a girl with black hair wearing a ponytail. She stated that she knew that the threat of expulsion was just a way to get everyone to try their best. Out of the corner of his eye, the green-haired boy could sense that someone was nearby watching. He took a glance over his shoulder and saw that it was All Might. The boy felt happy that the number one hero was there to see him try his best. A couple of minutes later, the tired teacher told everyone to head home for the day. While everyone was getting ready to go to school, All Might spoke to Aizawa about the rules. Last year you expelled everyone in your class. What made you change your mind? The tired teacher sighed as he responded, I suppose I decided to give these students a chance this year. Well, I admit that most of them don't have much of a chance. I can see some potential in them, especially that Midoriya boy. All Might smiled after hearing that. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, everyone was packing their things to leave. Deku, Ida, you two heading to the station too? Uraraka asked with enthusiasm. As they began to walk towards the station, Deku felt a presence nearby. It felt odd to him. He ignored it and kept talking to his new friends. In a classroom, a green-haired boy was taking notes on how to improve his quirk use. He muttered ideas out loud without knowing that everyone was looking at him like he was crazy. His muttering came to a stop when he felt a hand on his shoulder asking him if he was okay. The green-haired boy looked over his shoulder and saw that it was Uraraka. His face turned a bright red and stuttered, I'm fine. The brown-haired girl gave a sigh of relief and told him, You were muttering to yourself, and everyone got a little freaked out by it. The green-haired boy saw everyone nod in agreement with what she was saying, and he apologized for worrying everyone else. He then explained that it was a habit of his. Things got quiet as soon as the number one hero made a flashy entrance. I am here, walking in through the front door like a hero. Everyone was in awe of the number one hero's entrance, while others pointed out that he was wearing his Silver Age costume. Deku's eye began to shine as he saw his idol stand where Aizawa usually stood. Today we will be doing battle simulations, the number one hero announced. Everyone got excited by the announcement, especially Bakugo, who had been waiting for it the most. He uttered, Hell yeah, combat training! Unlike in canon, Deku felt very confident. He even thought to himself, I can finally put all my training and research to good use. The number one hero cleared his throat as he told the class, In order to be heroes, you'll need to look the part. He pressed a button, revealing a compartment near the entrance of the classroom. In each compartment were briefcases. All Might instructed the class to get dressed, and when they were done with that, they should meet with him at Ground Beta. After everyone got changed into their hero costumes, they all complimented each other on their costume designs. Deku stepped out into the light wearing a costume similar to his canon one, the only difference being that he had some flamethrower gauntlets on his arms. A female voice called out to him, Wow, Deku, your costume looks amazing. The green-haired boy looked to see who had said that, and he saw Uraraka in her hero costume. Man, your costume looks so detailed. I probably should have been more specific with mine. Skin-tight bodysuit isn't really my style, she said as she rubbed the back of her head, embarrassed. The green-haired boy covered his face, as he was blushing a bright pink. He complimented her by saying, You look great. I think I was a little too specific with mine. These gauntlets are a bit heavy. Their small conversation was cut short, as All Might went over the rules of the simulation. Everyone was assigned to the same team as in canon. As Izuku and Ochako were going over the plan on how to secure the weapon, the brown-haired girl asked Midoriya, What is your relationship with Bakugo? He seems to always glare at you, growl at you and stuff. Why is that? The green-haired boy was caught off guard by this question, but took a deep breath and explained the reasons. He and I were childhood friends, and ever since he first got his quirk, he treated me very badly. Now that I've developed my own quirk, he sees me as a threat. Now that the brown-haired girl was given the context of the situation, she commented that their relationship was like a rivalry in a shonen anime. Izuku chuckled at the idea and responded with, something like that. As the simulation started, Deku instructed Uraraka to use her quirk on him to enter through the window. They both entered the building, and he gestured to her to stay very quiet. As they both entered an empty corridor, the green-haired boy sensed something approaching. An angry Bakugo jumped out of one of the corridors as he attempted to attack Deku, but he wasn't there. Only the brown-haired girl was seen standing in the hall. Where's Deku? The atomic blonde asked in an angered tone. Uraraka placed the tip of her fingers together and uttered the words, Release. It took the atomic blonde a couple of seconds to realize where Deku was. He looked up and saw a determined Izuku trying to land a punch on the atomic blonde. The green-haired boy then ordered Uraraka to go on ahead. The atomic blonde and the green-haired boy were staring intensely at each other. The atomic blonde growled and said, You think just because you got a quirk that you're better than me? Well, you're not! The green-haired boy just retorted, Are you going to talk or fight? The blonde got very livid at hearing that snarky comment, and just attacked with his right hand. He was caught off guard at how Deku saw it coming, and grappled the blonde and threw him over his shoulder and into the ground. You don't get it, Kanchan. I'm not the same Deku you once knew. I've grown up. From now on, Deku is the name of a hero. Meanwhile, as Uraraka entered the 5th floor, she saw from a pillar that Ida was practicing how to be a villain. This made the girl burst out laughing, which unfortunately gave away her position. The blue-haired Robo-Knight explained that he cleared out the room so that she couldn't use her quirk. He then said in a villainous tone, "So what shall you do, hero?" He then proceeded to laugh in a villainous way. This worried her and made her think, I hope Deku knows what he's doing. Back at the hallway corridor, Bakugo was trying to blow Deku to pieces, but the green-haired boy kept evading and using his quirk to deflect the blasts. The green-haired boy said in a sassy tone, "Surely you can do better than that." The atomic blonde got irritated and raised one of his grenade gauntlets and revealed a pin. He slowly started to pull it. All Might warned the atomic blonde, "No, young Bakugo, you'll end up killing him." The atomic blonde responded, "He'll be fine as long as he dodges." Deku grinned at the atomic blonde. The green-haired boy planted his feet firmly on the ground, and as the giant explosion approached him, he manipulated the blast to make a hole in the ceiling. "Uraraka now!" the green-haired boy shouted through his earpiece. The brown-haired girl grabbed onto the pillar she was hiding behind and used her quirk to throw it at Ida. She then jumped towards the weapon and secured a victory for Team A. As the simulation ended, everyone was ordered to go into the monitor room where they could watch all the other students. While there, a girl with black hair was making judgments. The way Midoriya was taunting his opponent in order to take advantage of his attack was both very clever, but also very manipulative. Bakugo caused so much collateral damage from inside the building that he almost brought the building down. Lastly, Uraraka gave away her position when she should have been stealthy. I declare Tenya Ida the MVP of this exercise. He was the only one who stayed focused, the black-haired girl said in a reserved voice. After hearing those words, Ida smiled and said, "I am honored to have followed the rules accordingly." The green-haired boy asked Uraraka if she knew who this girl was, and she shook her head as she didn't know her name. Another student came in and told them that her name was Momo Yaoyorozu, and that she got into UA through recommendation. Bakugo didn't listen to a single word anyone said. He was still in shock about how he let himself be played like that. He looked at the green-haired boy and whispered, "What the hell happens to you?" The rest of the class went the same as in canon. After the exercise, All Might pulled the green-haired boy aside and told him that he needed to talk to him. The green-haired boy did as the number one hero told him, and they both sat down. "You've shown incredible progress with your newfound quirk, young Midoriya," the number one hero said as he gave a thumbs up. The green-haired boy rubbed the back of his head as he told the number one hero that it was thanks to his training. The number one hero then told the green-haired boy that his little stunt was very risky and that he should be really careful with his quirk. The green-haired boy told the number one hero, "I know, I'm still working on ways to improve it." The number one hero simply told the boy that he believed in him and that he'd figure out a way. When it was time to leave school, the green-haired boy went to talk to the atomic blonde near the classroom door. His former bully just gave him the silent treatment and didn't shout or say anything to him. This made the green-haired boy worry, since he'd never seen Katsuki be this quiet. "Why aren't you saying anything?" the green-haired boy said as he started to get anxious. The atomic blonde looked at the green-haired boy and just told him, "I won't lose to you again, you damned nerd. I'll become the number one hero." The green-haired boy was happy to receive a response. His smile then turned into a smug grin, saying, "Well then, may the best man win." The atomic blonde just scoffed and retorted, "I plan to." After both boys had their declaration of war, a female voice asked him, "What was that about?" The green-haired boy recognized the voice as Uraraka's and just responded with, "That was a declaration of war." On his way to school, Midoriya was surprised at the giant crowd of news reporters surrounding the school. He wondered, "I wonder what they want." One of the reporters noticed the green-haired boy and started asking him multiple questions about All Might. The boy felt anxious at all these people crowding him. He wasn't used to having cameras or mics shoved in his face. For a minute, he felt a strange presence nearby. He started to walk through the reporters and cameramen in order to see where the source was coming from. As soon as he got out of the crowd, he saw that no one was there. He asked himself, was it just my imagination? After a while, he just went straight to his homeroom, and the UA staff took care of the media problem. In the 1A classroom, Deku was writing down some notes about his costume. His train of thought got put on hold when he saw his teacher, Mr. Aizawa, announce that someone should run for class representative. Everyone started to randomly volunteer for the position until a stern voice said, "Everyone, we must do this in an orderly fashion. We'll vote for the class representative." That voice came from Ida, who was raising his hand as a sign of being interested in the position. Everyone voted, and both Izuku and Momo got the highest vote. The green-haired boy was nervous about this and looked for an out. The tired teacher in the sleeping bag simply instructed, "Look, I don't care who it is, just figure it out after my nap." Everyone went to lunch and had started talking about the position. The green-haired boy, on the other hand, was still pondering about that odd presence he felt. He was so deep in thought that he didn't hear the school alarm go off. Everyone was running toward the exit, and some were being pressed against the school window. The blue-haired boy noticed that the cause of the alarm was just the media. Tenya asked Uraraka to go use her quirk on him. She did, managing to touch his fingertips and make him float. Much like in canon, he used his engines to move towards the exit sign and to tell everyone that it was just the media outside. After all that, Ida got elected president just like in canon. The next day, everyone was told to suit up for rescue training exercise, and were told that the exercise was somewhere off campus. Deku decided not to wear his costume for the exercise and just wore his PE uniform with some of his hero gear. On the bus drive, everyone was talking and getting to know each other. One student asked Midoriya how he manipulated the blast from Bakugo's explosion. "My quirk allows me to manipulate heat sources. I'm still getting the hang of it since I only developed it about a year ago," the green-haired boy explained. "So you're a late bloomer?" a girl with a frog face asked. Izuku nodded at the girl's question and just said, "Pretty much." As everyone continued to ask the boy multiple questions, one commented that he was similar to Bakugo, to which the latter yelled in anger at the comparison. The green-haired boy commented in a snarky tone, "Except I don't have one emotion." The atomic blonde growled at the green-haired boy and dared him to say it again. Their petty argument was stopped by Aizawa as he told everyone that they had arrived. "Everyone, this is 13. She'll be assisting me in this class," the tired teacher said. Everyone greeted the space hero, while a certain brown-haired girl was fangirling. The green-haired boy had noticed her getting excited to see her idol in person. He smiled at seeing her happy, but that smile quickly faded as he felt the same presence he felt the other day. "Deku, are you all right?" the brown-haired girl asked as she noticed his face looking a bit alert. Midoriya saw in the distance a black hole culminating in the middle of the plaza. There he saw a hand-covered villain and a bunch of other lackeys walk out of the portal.
"Where's All Might? I was told he'd be here,"
the hand villain said in a raspy, disappointed voice. The portal then morphed into a human-like shape and simply responded with, "I am not sure. Perhaps there was a change in schedule." As everyone saw the villains, Aizawa ordered everyone to stay back. He then ordered 13 to call for backup. Unfortunately, she could not. There was something jamming their frequency. Aizawa then told everyone in Class 1A to stay with 13 while he took care of some of the villains. Deku was concerned for his teacher, but that concern faded as he saw Mr. Aizawa mop the floor with some of the villains. Deku muttered in an impressed tone, "Damn, he's good." Ida ordered the green-haired boy to get back. Izuku obeyed, but as he ran toward the others, a black mist popped up and gathered around him and his classmates. "Terribly sorry for showing up uninvited. We are the League of Villains. We are here for All Might." "Where is he?" the black mist said in a calm but demanding tone. Everyone in Class 1A said nothing until a certain atomic blonde and redhead decided to instigate an attack. The villain engulfed half of the class in his black mist and warped them to different parts of the USJ. Deku fell into a body of water, and on first instinct he tried to swim up to the surface, but a villain caught sight of him and tried to eat him. Midoriya froze in panic because he didn't know what to do. His quirk wasn't designed to work in water. His fear then faded when he saw the frog-faced girl kick the villain in the water, and she wrapped the green-haired boy with her tongue. She took him and a purple-haired boy to a boat. While on the boat, Izuku thanked the frog girl. "Please, call me too," she said as she climbed on board. Deku looked at the perimeter and saw that the entire area was filled with water-based villains. Purple Boy was freaking out and commented that they were basically a bunch of damsels in distress. The green-haired boy in a snarky tone responded to that comment by saying, "We may be damsels, and we may be in distress, but we can handle this." The two of them asked Midoriya what the plan was for escaping. He began to think of something, but nothing came up. He then asked what quirks his two classmates had. One told him that his quirk was that his hair popped off and could stick to any surface. The other told him that her quirk was basically anything a frog can do. Then Deku got an idea after hearing the two of them explain their quirks. A couple of minutes later, the green-haired boy called out to the villains and told them to come at him. All the villains took offense to that comment and charged toward the boat. As they got closer, Deku used his flamethrower to make a small ball of fire, and with that ball of fire he managed to create a flash of light, temporarily blinding the villains. "Now!" the green-haired boy shouted. The frog girl wrapped her tongue around Izuku and jumped as high as she could away from the boat. The Mineta threw his hair at the villains. The villains got stuck together, and the students escaped the flood zone with ease. "Have a nice day," Deku snarked at the captured villains in the flood zone. Meanwhile, Aizawa was facing the rest of the villains, and as he was getting closer to Shigaraki, he saw a giant beast tower over him as he grabbed the tired teacher and slammed his face to the ground.
"You like my Nomu? It was designed to kill All Might. But since he's not here, I guess it'll have to start with you," the hand-covered villain said in a sadistic tone. The mist villain returned and informed Shigaraki that one student managed to escape. This angered the villain so much that he started scratching his neck in frustration. "Nomu, tear him apart,"
the hand villain ordered. Nomu started to twist and crush the shaggy-haired teacher's arm, causing him to scream in agony. Midoriya and his classmates witnessed the horror happening in front of them, and on instinct, the freckled boy couldn't take it anymore and charged straight towards the Nomu. The hand-covered villain saw the boy charge and simply commented,
"Another player has entered the game."
The Nomu shifted focus towards the young teen and tried to punch his face in. The teen dodged the attack and shot some fireballs toward the beast. It didn't have much effect.
"What are you doing? You're going to get yourself killed,"
Aizawa shouted, showing some concern in his voice. The green-haired boy signaled the purple boy and frog girl to take Aizawa somewhere safe. He thought, if I keep the Nomu distracted, then the pros will be able to arrive on time. As he kept dodging, he lost his footing and fell to the floor. The Nomu was prepared to finish the boy off, but suddenly he found himself in another part of the plaza 10 feet away from the Nomu. Deku looked confused, but then he looked up and saw that the #1 hero had swooped in right on time. "Have no fear, for I am here," the #1 hero uttered. Soon as the #1 hero arrived on the scene, the freckled boy got excited to see his idol. As soon as Izuku was distracted, Shigaraki ordered the Nomu to crush the boy. Nomu heard the command and was about to obey, but the boy disappeared. The hand-covered villain looked confused and angrily wondered,
"Where did that brat go?"
He then saw that the #1 hero took the freckled boy somewhere safe. All Might was about to return to the scene, but Deku told his idol, "Be careful, All Might." The #1 hero nodded in response to the boy's concern and charged straight into the fight. The boy was happy to see his #1 hero at his best.
"Midoriya, a little help, please?"
the frog girl uttered as she held an injured Aizawa. The green-haired boy went and helped the two carry their teacher to safety, but Izuku couldn't stop looking at the fight. He wanted to see his hero in action and hopefully learn what he had to live up to. The #1 hero grabbed the beast by the waist in hopes of performing a German suplex. However, a black hole was formed, and the top half of the Nomu went through it, while the other half grabbed All Might by his injured weak spot. "Crap, he's grabbing my weak spot," the blonde hero thought in his head. The green-haired boy heard screams of pain and immediately knew who it was. On instinct, he charged straight back to the center plaza and went to help his #1 hero in his time of need. "Where are you going?" the frog girl asked in a concerned voice. The freckled boy didn't respond as he was too focused on getting back to the scene. When he arrived, he saw the predicament that All Might was in. He tried to figure out a way to help All Might. He rubbed his chin with his fingers and looked at his hands, and upon looking at them, he immediately thought of the perfect solution to the problem. He got into a vantage point as he activated his gauntlet, and with his left hand, he made a flaming bow, and with his right, he made a flaming arrow. He knelt down on one knee and started aiming at the target. "I only get one shot at this," the freckled boy said in his head. He shot the arrow at the Nomu's foot in the hope that the fire would cause him to let go. The Nomu screeched from the pain, and that gave All Might the chance to break free from the beast's grasp. The hand-covered villain scratched his neck multiple times as he said in an irritated tone,
"That brat really doesn't know when to quit."
While everyone was distracted, a blockade of ice encased the Nomu. Deku recognized who this attack belonged to. He then saw his childhood friend / bully charge at Kurogiri and then pin him to the ground as he held on to the metal collar. Took them long enough, the green-haired boy thought in his head with a snarky tone. The hand villain was not happy with seeing his plans fail before his eyes. However, his anger subsided as he saw the encased Nomu break free from his ice prison. It roared in anger.
Nomu, kill them all!
The creepy hand villain ordered. The Nomu obeyed the command and immediately charged at the freckled boy who was now paralyzed with fear. The beast reeled his fist back and prepared to launch a hole through the boy's head, but the punch never came. Deku saw that All Might was holding the monster's arm with a locked-on grip and uttered, "I won't let you lay a finger on my students!" He then started to spin the monster around so fast that he almost created a tornado. He then threw that beast through the roof of the USJ, creating a massive hole in the ceiling. "Your biggest player is out of the game, and half of your minions have been subdued by first-year students. Your move," the symbol of peace uttered in a bit of a sassy tone. Deku heard this comment and thought to himself that he was starting to rub off on All Might. The black smoke villain broke free of his capture and said,
We should leave before the pros get here.
The hand villain ignored that suggestion and charged straight at the green-haired boy in hopes of disintegration. As he got close, his hand was shut. This caught both him and Deku off guard. However, the latter was relieved that the pros had arrived.
Let's get out of here,
the handyman said. In an instant, both villains disappeared into a black portal. After all that, All Might had just hit his limit, and Deku went to check on his idol. As he ran towards All Might, he heard a familiar voice call out to him. He looked over and saw that it was Kirishima. As the redhead ran closer, a wall of cement blocked his way. Kirishima was caught off guard by this, but was assured by the pro-hero Cementos that everything will be all right and that he should get back to his group. Afterwards, the police had arrived to apprehend the remaining villains and the Nomu. A couple of the students were frightened by the experience, while others felt thrilled by being given the chance to fight real villains. One student noticed that Midoriya wasn't there with him. That student was none other than Katsuki Bakugo. Meanwhile, in Recovery Girl's office, a bandaged and deflated All Might was laying on the hospital bed, while Deku was sitting next to him. The deflated hero tried to sit up, but felt his body ache from the pain. The green ant asked the number one hero in a concerned voice, "Are you all right?" The blonde hero responded as he held the bandaged side of his body.
"I'll be fine now, Midoriya. Although, I think I may have cut it kind of close. Ow."
Midoriya gave a light chuckle at the blonde hero's comment, but then changed his facial expression to a sad one. The number one hero noticed that the boy was upset and asked him what was wrong. To which Deku responded, "It's all my fault." The number one hero had a confused look on his face and wondered what the boy meant by that. Deku then continued while his eyes began to tear up. "I sensed a weird presence the other day, and I overlooked it, but when the villains attacked, I realized that the weird presence was that hand-covered villain. If I had known this would happen, I should have said something sooner. Instead, I let this happen. I got you injured. And Mr. Aizawa, I shouldn't call myself a hero." The boy began to break down in tears and covered his face. The number one hero saw the boy cry his eyes out and patted the boy's head. As he did so, he uttered,
"It's not your fault. You couldn't have known that this would happen."
The green ant then tried to add on to his guilt, but was cut off by a deflated All Might.
"I understand what you're feeling, young Midoriya. I've been in your position before."
As the number one hero wiped away the boy's tears from his face, he added on,
"All you can do is prepare yourself, if it ever happens again."
"I hope I'm not interrupting anything." The green ant looked over his shoulder and saw that the man had a trench coat and a police badge.
"Young Midoriya, this is Detective Tsukochi. He's a good friend of mine,"
All Might said as he introduced the man. The freckled boy extended his hand and said nervously, "Very nice to meet you, sir." The detective gave a warm smile at the boy's polite nature. Deku then left the room so that the two of them could talk about important things. After he changed back into his school uniform, everyone ganged up on Midoriya. They asked him a barrage of questions about what had happened. This overwhelmed the green ant, but his worries faded as a stern voice said, "Everyone please control yourself, you're overwhelming him." The voice was Tenya Ida, as he waved his arms in a robotic motion. Everyone gave the boy his space and refrained from asking any further questions. The greenette took a deep breath and assured everyone that he was fine. Then an unknown voice was heard. "Attention, students! This is your principal. The school will be closed tomorrow in order to run a proper investigation." Everyone gave mixed reactions about this announcement. Some were happy, while others were a bit sad. Deku was relieved, but still felt a bit of the guilt from earlier. However, he smacked himself on the face with both hands, in order not to feel that way again. Everyone left the school for the day, and the greenette walked with his friends to the station. In the distance, Katsuki was observing Deku, and had the sneaking suspicion that he was hiding something. In Deku's apartment, Inko asked her son if he wanted anything to eat, but the boy told her that he didn't want anything. The greenette immediately went over to his hero notes and wrote down about his new trick, and noted that he should practice to see if he could make something similar to that. He then looked at his hand and said to himself, "I need to prepare myself for the unexpected, and work hard to improve my quirk." The next day at UA, everyone was wondering if they were going to have a substitute teacher, but as the door opened, they saw Mr. Aizawa with bandages all over his face and both his arms in casts. He told everyone that Recovery Girl went overboard with her treatment, and that there would be an annual sports festival. Everyone got excited for this announcement, especially Uraraka, who was giving off a dark aura of determination. As he saw how determined his friend was, Deku took it upon himself to schedule training sessions with one of the teachers in order to practice his new trick. He then started muttering, which started to freak everyone out again, until the atomic blonde stopped his train of thought. He uttered,
Listen, nerd. I won't lose to you the same way I did at the fight simulation.
The freckled boy was not surprised that his former friend/bully would make another declaration of war. He then responded in a sassy tone, "Looks like you're finally taking this seriously. Took you long enough." The atomic blonde got irritated by this comment and just simply shouted,
"You better give it your all, you damned nerd. Same goes for you, Icy Hot."
As the atomic blonde left the classroom, the greenette looked at his childhood friend/bully and gave a smug grin. He then looked out the classroom window towards the sky. He thought to himself, "Let the games begin." After receiving the announcement from his homeroom teacher about the upcoming sports festival, our green-haired hero prepared himself for the upcoming challenges the festival had to offer. It was his only chance of proving that he could be a great hero who could overcome any challenge. During his 2 weeks of training, the greenette had come up with new fighting styles and techniques involving his quirk under the supervision of All Might. "Well done, my boy. You've been making progress with your newfound quirk," the #1 hero said with pride. The compliment made the freckled boy blush in embarrassment, for he was not used to so much praise. He then stared down at his right hand with determination. "I can do this. I can become the next symbol of peace," he thought to himself. After weeks of training, the day of the UA Sports Festival finally arrived. As he got ready to leave, Inko let her son know that she would be cheering him on, and that she would record everything. This made the green-haired boy smile. He gave his mother a kiss and waved goodbye. When he stepped out the door, he looked up at the sky. In the distance, he saw a crow flying nearby, which he found odd. He shrugged it off and continued on his way to the school. In the waiting room, all of Class 1A had become both nervous and excited for the event. Although a certain bi-colored teen made a face that made it seem like he was empty inside. He glared at the green-haired boy. There was a deep resentment that he harbored towards the #2 hero. When he looked at Izuku, he only saw a culmination of his father. He changed his expression and was prepared to talk to Midoriya, but someone else already beat him to it.
"Hey, Deku, I just want you to know that I'll win this festival. Don't you dare hold back on me. Same goes for you, Icy Hot," the atomic blonde said in his usual angry tone.
The freckled boy gave a smug grin and retorted, "Okay, but if I win, you have to call me by my name." Instead of getting irritated, the atomic blonde scoffed and responded,
"And if I win, you'll have to be my training dummy."
Deku agreed to the atomic blonde's wager, and they both shook hands. As Todoroki saw the exchange between the rivals, he decided to put a pin on talking to Deku. A couple of minutes later, they all entered the arena. Most were surprised by how many people had attended the event, while others were not. The opening speech went the same as in canon. Katsuki had made Class 1A a target yet again, but Izuku at this point wasn't surprised by his childhood friend/bully's little declaration. The first event was an obstacle course. Midnight explained the rules. Everyone was allowed to use their quirks as long as they stayed within the course. As everyone got into their position for the race to start, the green-haired boy remembered what All Might told him before his 2 weeks of training. while a certain atomic blonde grit his teeth and prepared to beat everyone in the race. A certain scarred teen glared at a certain hero standing with his arms crossed in the stands. The race started, and everyone immediately ran into a corridor. Little by little, it got cramped by all the students. Everyone pushed and shoved each other while others used their quirks to go over them. The green-haired boy thought about using his quirk to leave the corridor, but decided not to. When he was about to get near the exit, the floor became encased in ice, which caused the other students near the exit to slip and fall. President Mike commented,
Wow, that Todoroki kid sure is cold.
Aizawa sighed at the terrible pun his childhood friend made. He then responded in a monotone voice, This is a competition. He's doing what he can to win. Let's hope it doesn't become his downfall. As the bicolored teen slid ahead, he stopped when he saw a giant robot stand in front of him. One of the other students pointed out that those were the same robots used at the entrance exam. The robot attempted to crush the students with its metal hand. All the other students had to duck and cover themselves as they prepared for the impact, but an impact never came. As they all looked up, they saw that the robot had been frozen over by the Son of Endeavor. After he had frozen the robot, Shoto continued forward with the race. He had no time to stand around and waste time. Deku arrived on the scene and saw the robots. He was surprised at how fast Todoroki took it down with his quirk. It was moments like these that made the freckled boy want to write down some notes, but that had to be done much later. He saw a piece of the robot on the ground and decided to use it to his advantage.
Move out of the way, extras!
The talking dynamite shouted as he flew by everyone in the race. The students eventually reached the next obstacle, the fall. Competitors traversed large stone pillars connected by tightropes without falling into the pit below in order to move on to the next obstacle. Tsuyuasui, Tenya Ida, Shoto, and other students used their quirks while balancing themselves to get across. Kazuki flew across using his explosions, while Mei Hatsume used her gadgets to do the same. Shoto was the first to get across the fissure, with Kazuki in hot pursuit. Mezzo Shoji and Yuga also flew over the obstacle, while Izuku traversed the tightropes upside down. As soon as the bicolored teen entered the final obstacle, he saw a sign that warned him of mines. He carefully walked onto the minefield without trying to cause an explosion. However, some of the other competitors made it to the minefield and some stepped on a few.
Out of the way, half-breed! This is my win!
Shouted Bakugo as he tried to blow up the scarred teen. The scarred teen dodged the blonde's attack and froze the blonde boy's right arm when he grabbed it. Their little squabble stopped as soon as they saw a giant explosion in the distance. Out of the explosion came Midoriya.
Whoa, what a twist! Midoriya from Class 1A gathered up some mines in order to make a big explosion to get in the lead. Eraserhead, what do you have to say about this?
President Mike asked. The bandaged-up teacher didn't respond immediately, but he was impressed by how much Midoriya managed to get done without the use of his quirk. He then responded with, Not bad for an amateur. President Mike felt a cold breeze pass him after Aizawa made that comment. Meanwhile, back at the race, the greenette was getting close to landing on the ground. He needed some momentum to continue forward. He then got an idea. Izuku stood on both their shoulders and slammed his shield into the ground, creating yet another explosion that propelled him forward. He then ran as fast as he could to the finish line. Everyone in the audience was at the edge of their seats as they waited to see who would come out first. The winner stepped out of the corridor, and it was Izuku Midoriya. Everyone in the crowd was cheering, while in the distance, Inko cried her eyes out as she saw her son win the race on live TV. In second place came Katsuki Bakugo, and in third, Shoto Todoroki. The former was not happy that he came in second place, while the latter just looked away in disappointment. After everyone else had arrived at the arena, a certain brunette walked up to Deku and simply commented about how challenging the race was and that it was fun. The green-haired boy's face was completely red at how close the girl was talking to him. A couple minutes later, Midnight explained that students must form teams of a maximum of 4 people, 1 rider and at least 1 horse. She then explained the cavalry battle's point system. Each student was given a point value, and a team's value depended on where their members finished in preliminaries. A 42nd place finish is worth 5 points, with 5 points added to the point value with each cascading place. The first place finisher, however, is worth 10 million points. Individual point values are added together to reach each team's total. These point values are displayed via headbands. The goal of the game is to steal headbands in order to raise the team's score. Contestants are not allowed to make each other fall on purpose. Even if a team loses their headband or falls down, they can compete until the 30-minute time limit is up. After hearing that the first place winner was worth 10 million points, everyone looked at Izuku like a pair of lions waiting patiently to pounce on their prey in order to feed. This made the green-haired boy feel extremely overwhelmed. He started to get a bit anxious of what was going to happen to him. Midnight gave the students 15 minutes to form their teams. Many students in Class A had tried to join up with Katsuki because he came in third in the first event and had 200 points. Katsuki ended up teaming up with Eijiro, Hanta, and Mina. Minoru convinced Mezzo and Tsuyu to join his team. All the while, everyone avoided Izuku because his point value was too high. I guess no one wants to join a guy who has too many points, Izuku thought. He was about ready to give up hope until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked at who it was, and it turned out to be Ochako. "Want to team up? I think it's better to team up with people you know, right?" she said in a light-hearted, awkward tone. This moment caused the green-haired boy to create a waterfall of tears from his eyes. They then go to ask their friend Tenya Ida if he'd join their team, but the class rep refused their offer. He instead joined Shoto's team in order to beat Deku. Out of nowhere, a girl with pink braids and support gear introduced herself as Mei Hatsume, and she offered to join his team in order to promote her babies. Without hesitation, Izuku accepted Mei on the team. With the team nearly being completed, Deku noticed that almost everyone had joined a team. This made the freckled boy worried that he might not complete his team on time, but he got an idea on who should be his last team member. He recruited his classmate Tokoyami. With the team completed and with minutes to spare, Izuku went over the strategy with his teammates, to which they all nodded in agreement. They all got into their respective positions and waited for the second event to begin. Event to start. The green-haired boy looked at his hand. His thought process was cut short when the event started. As everyone else was running toward Team Midoriya, the green-haired boy grinned and activated a jetpack given to him by Mei. Everyone floated in the air for a while in hopes that it would buy them time. Meanwhile, Team Todoroki decided to snatch the headbands of the other competitors while they were distracted, trying to get the 10 million headband. Team Bakugo, on the other hand, was far more aggressive as the atomic blonde used his explosion to blind everyone and rip the headbands off them like a necklace. He then had one of his headbands taken by a smug blonde boy on his team. The blonde boy gave a smug grin. The blonde boy commented, My, with such barbaric tactics, it's easy to get caught off guard. I must say, I expected more of a challenge from you. Ciao." That smug comment made Katsuki give off a red aura. His eyes were now filled with murderous intentions. He instructed his team to target that boy for now. His teammates didn't find his sudden mood switch surprising and did what he said. As Team Bakugo began to approach a team that consisted of students from Class 1B, he tried to use his explosion to blind the boy. But the smug blonde predicted his movement and ducked. He then grabbed Katsuki's arm with his left hand, and with the other he used an explosion that was similar to his. "What the hell?" the atomic blonde muttered as he was caught off guard by the explosion. "You have quite an impressive quirk, but will it be enough to beat me?" the smug blonde commented as he made many explosions in his hand. Meanwhile, as Team Midoriya descended from the air, Team Todoroki were in pursuit of the freckled boy's team. Meanwhile, Team Bakugo devised a plan to get their headband back. The atomic blonde ordered the tape dispenser to give a lifeline of tape. He then propelled himself in the air towards the Class 1B team. One of the students formed a thick barrier around Monoma, but the atomic blonde broke it without breaking a sweat. He grabbed his headband back and said in a menacing tone, "If you ever come between me and my victory, I'll blow your head off." He yanked back to his team, and they continued their pursuit to get Deku and his 10 million. With 1 minute remaining, Team Todoroki had cornered Team Monoma. However, Izuku had been able to keep Shoto at bay by exploiting Shoto's refusal to use his left side. Tenya took control of the desperate situation for his team and debuted his special move, the Recipro Burst. In a flash, Tenya ran past Team Midoriya's defenses, and Shoto took Izuku's headband. The recoil from Tenya's super speed stalled his engines, leaving Team Todoroki immobile. Fumikage suggested the team try to take other headbands, but Izuku refused because there wasn't enough time left. Ochako encouraged her team to get their points back and rushed at Team Todoroki. Inspired by his teammates' cooperation, Izuku made a bow and arrow and aimed it at Shoto, forcing the latter to ignite his flames as a defense. Izuku used his quirk to propel his team through the field like a rocket and take out Shoto's defense. He made a ball of light from his hand and used it to blind Team Todoroki. He used the opening and took one of the headbands off Shoto's neck, believing it to be the 10 million point one. However, Mei confirmed the headband was only worth 70 points. Team Midoriya made one final push and Team Bakugo arrived. They all prepared to clash when suddenly time ran out and the game ended. "I'm sorry, guys, I failed you," he said in a sad tone. One of his teammates with a bird head showed him a headband that was worth 615. He told the green-haired boy how he had managed to get it at the last minute. The green-haired boy let out tears of joy, and on instinct, he pulled in the boy with a dark quirk for a hug. Tokoyami was uncertain how to react to this sudden display of affection, but he gave the freckled boy an awkward pat on the back. At the cafeteria, Deku was thinking about his performance at the cavalry battle. He wondered if he did great, if All Might approved of his actions.
Hey, Deku!
A familiar voice called out to him. The greenette turned around to find the source, and just as he expected, it was his childhood friend/bully. In his head, he thought, I must live in his head rent-free. The atomic blonde approached his rival in his usual angry way, and was about to say something, but was cut off by Midoriya. Let me guess, you're here to rub in your victory and that you'll be the winner of this festival? The green-haired boy said in a sarcastic tone. That response irritated the atomic blonde. Before he walked away, he said,
If we end up fighting each other, I'm going to beat you.
The green-haired boy responded in a sassy tone. We'll see about that. After both boys finished their bickering, the brown-haired girl called for Izuku to stand next to her in line, and he did. They talked about how he did in the cavalry battle, and she complimented Deku for his bow and arrow trick. After lunch, Midnight then announced the brackets of which students would be fighting in the tournament. Much like in canon, 2 students forfeited from the match. Izuku was set to fight with a boy named Hitoshi Shinso. He was approached by the boy in question and was asked a question. Before Izuku could answer, he was stopped by his classmate with a tail. The purple-haired boy walked away with a devilish grin, like he had something planned for the greenette. A couple hours passed by, and the arena was being set up for the matches. Deku and Ojiro were discussing Shinso and his quirk. Based on the description that was given to him, Midoriya came to the conclusion that it only activated if one answered his questions. The tail boy asked Izuku if he had a plan. The green-haired boy assured his classmate that he had that covered.
And here we are, folks, the battle of the tournament. From Class 1A, the boy with a flaming quirk, Izuku Midoriya, and a student who wants to transfer into the hero course, Shinso Hitoshi. Let the match begin, President Mike announced.
Both boys gave a look of determination that indicated neither planned on backing down. Deku wasn't sure of what his opponent's quirk was, but he made sure to do as Ojiro instructed. As the match began, Deku made 2 balls of fire and prepared to throw them at Shinso.
So, that monkey boy called it quits, huh? How cowardly.
Well, wouldn't expect anything less from a Class 1A student, he commented, which caused the green-haired boy to grit his teeth.
Don't talk about him that way,
the freckled boy shouted in anger. After uttering those words, he stopped in his tracks. His eyes looked like they were in a trance. He couldn't move or anything. This pleased the purple-haired boy. Everyone in the audience was confused to see the green-haired boy stop midway. In the viewing box, a deflated All Might noticed the green-haired boy's eyes. He didn't know what was going on, but hoped that Izuku would pull a fast one.
Now be a good little hero and step out of bounds, he ordered.
Izuku did as Shin ordered, the same way a puppy would with its owner. Mentally, he tried to resist, but nothing happened. Was this the end? Was all his hard work going to go to waste? He stopped in the middle of his tracks, which confused the purple-haired boy. He was going to say something, but was interrupted by a screaming Izuku.
Ow! Hot! Hot! Hot!
The greenette shouted in pain. Shinso looked at what caused his quirk to wear off and saw half of Izuku's uniform was burnt.
So you managed to break free by sheer convenience. No matter. Want to know how this'll end?
Shinso commented, hoping to catch the green-haired boy off guard. Izuku manipulated the fire that was burning him and put it out. He then regained focus on the task at hand and charged at Shinso, tackling him like a football player. The purple-haired boy tried to resist being pushed out of bounds. He punched the green-haired boy in the face, causing him to stagger back a bit.
You're so blessed with your flashy quirk and amazing tricks, while people like me never get a chance to show what they're worth,
the purple-haired boy said in an angry tone. He then continued,
You get everything handed to you. It's not fair.
The green-haired boy wanted to protest what Shinso was saying, but he didn't want to drop his guard, not even for a bit. He grabbed Shinso, lifted him up, and threw him out of bounds. Midnight declared Izuku the winner. Izuku walked towards Shinso, offered him a hand, and said, I think that if you worked really hard on your quirk, you might earn a place in the hero course. If it worked for me, then it'll work the same for you. I believe in you. Those words made Shinso see Izuku in a new light. He saw a beacon of hope.
Thank you,
the purple-haired boy muttered as he took the hand Izuku offered. They both walked out of the ring. Shinso was encouraged by his classmates for his performance. A couple minutes later, Izuku ran into All Might, who was impressed by the boy's actions. The green-haired boy blushed in embarrassment. It was nothing, really, although being caught on fire was not part of the plan. That was an accident, the greenette muttered. The number 1 hero chuckled at the comment, but he clarified what he meant.
Young Midoriya, when you won the match and offered a hand to that boy, you gave him something that he thought he had lost. Hope.
That comment made Izuku's eyes widen, because he didn't know that he had done something like that. His eyes then filled up with tears. The number 1 hero placed a hand on the boy's head and patted him.
At the rate you're going, I think you'll make a great symbol of peace.
the skeletal man said with a smile on his face. Meanwhile, in the corner of the hall, someone was eavesdropping on the conversation. That someone was none other than Todoroki. His eyes widened at the realization that the number one hero was a skeletal man, and that Midoriya was associated with him. During the conversation, Izuku sensed a presence nearby. The number one hero asked him if something was wrong, but the green-haired boy responded with, "I get the feeling we're being watched." Todoroki ran back to the stands to cover his tracks. The green-haired boy looked at the corner of the hall and saw that nobody was there. Was it just his imagination? All Might then told the green-haired boy that it was probably nothing, and that he should go back to the stands. The next fight was about to start. The green-haired boy did as the skeletal man told him, but couldn't shake the feeling that someone had overheard their conversation. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.